What's going on, world? Your man, Mr. Mac.
And I'm Crystal Leven.
This is the M+M+M show, aka the
Okay.
show coming to you live and direct with somebody who is perfect for putting you to sleep. And we're not just talking about the cooking she does in the kitchen, unless she's in the kitchen when it's happening. And that's a completely different movie and a whole different title. But you can probably find one of those too. Could you please state your name so folks know I'm not lying?
Hey y'all, I'm Babe West.
Hey, babe.
You can give us some more than that. You can come on in. Don't listen. One thing you can't do is be shy now. We've all done our homework here. You being shy is completely like off brand.
Okay, well, I'm the Babe West, and coming at you from Portland, Oregon. And let's see, this is like my second year in the adult film industry, so perfect for putting you to sleep after a hard day, or getting you hard after a good day.
Making it better, right?
You always, stuffing, dressing, all the works. I do it all.
I heard Oregon is a big place for that. Am I wrong? It's big for the adult film and sex work industry. Yeah.
P-Town for a reason.
Exactly. We have more strippers per capita than any other place. So.
And more strip clubs than any other place.
Yeah, and we have that beautiful, wonderful, protected by our state amendment rights, full, I call it open air pussy. Some people go to the strip clubs in the Midwest and they don't even get to see it. And here it's all on view for you.
Wow. I remember
spoiled.
The first strip club I ever went to was obviously a long time ago. I'm not a baby, but they took our phones and it was still G-strings, and it was just so much changed. They encourage you to take video and post people, and we go famous for what they do, and there's full nude and there's live sex act. I mean, I'm sure it always existed, but things have changed. It's wide open.
It's definitely come a long way. Funny that you mentioned that. The first one I ever went to, the first one I ever danced in was in South Dakota, because I was living in Wyoming for a hot minute, and at the time they weren't legal there. I don't know about now. And you couldn't actually show what they call the vortex, which is like, most of your fupa, and also you couldn't show your butt crack. That was all included into it. And the term for it was vortex. Like, vortex, you look at it, oh no, you're gonna get sucked in.
I was making a face before, but when you put it like that, it actually makes more sense than not. So I now I kind of get it. I kind of feel silly for
once you see it, you're like zoned in and.
I mean, what else do you actually look at when it arrives? I mean, we all know it's there, right? We all know it's there. When it comes stepping out of the limo, it's kind of like you can't help but to pull a paparazzi on it and just kind of, all right, hey, now this is happening. Okay, business is just officially picked up. So I kind of get that vortex reference.
Second year in the adult film industry, when did you strip first? Did you do that before, or was this
So stripping something that I came by more as a need. I was trying to get back to California and needed to come up with money to fix my van to move, and it was the quickest way to make money. And it worked, definitely. And it started with a wet t-shirt contest one summer, and
literally,
I was like, oh, okay.
Two of them if you win. Two slippery slopes if you win.
All right.
If you're doing it right, it's a slippery slope.
Okay.
I can do this all night, ladies and gentlemen. Tip your waitress. Try the
We do like slip and slides over here. Okay, so keep going. So it was a wet t-shirt contest.
Oh yeah, wet t-shirt contest at a motorcycle event. Like, I was just there for the beer, honestly, and
bikers and beer turned into
that liquid courage. It really got me going. And I had been in California, but again, the clubs that we had there, none of them were topless. So this was completely different. And though I didn't know this at the time, but after they selected the top 3 winners, there was a dance. I just a noob, little baby girl, did not know anything, and sitting in there, and then these other ladies are taking their shirt off, their wet shirt off, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, pull it up, all like coy and shy, like, oh, you want to see these? And then, you know, when people yell and holler at you, it's amazing. And here I am all these years later, and I still strip. So
I don't know about that. That never works for me. I could yell and holler all day. Nobody takes anything off. That is not how that works. Fellas, if you're listening to that, do not listen to her. Yeah, there have to be like motorcycles in the crowd and a lot of beer. Like that. Don't listen to her. That's not how that works. You can't do that on the subway. I'm just letting you know that.
Well, she wasn't on a subway.
Officer, like that's not. It won't go the same way. You won't get the same.
Mm. Also, your name is pretty perfect. Did you pick it? Is it any part of your real name? How did that happen? Like it's Mae West.
So Babe West, I'm a little bit of a theater geek and cinephile. So Mae West was in Hollywood for 7 decades before we had terms like MILF, G-MILF, and all that. And Mae West also, you know, breaking barriers and what we defined as beautiful, really broke the barriers as what we defined as acceptable, especially on the silver screen. So she was kissing people before it was legal to kiss all people, and she didn't give a damn. So kind of felt when I came into this industry, a lot of people were already trying to put me in a box, as they do. And people are always trying to define how beautiful you're going to be. And I felt a lot of pressure that, you know, going towards my 30s, that I would have an expiration date. And I was like, you know what, that's kind of bullshit. You're beautiful at any
Let me just interject. Every woman feels that in every industry, and it's bullshit.
It is. And so
let me further interject.
Yeah.
Women don't have the monopoly on feeling like there's an expiration date for certain things. We have way more in common when it comes to that than we don't. Yeah. A woman's may be more physical, but men feel the exact same. You let us see a couple of gray hairs, and all of a sudden you start realizing that you may not have kids. It's too late to join the fire department. Like you can never be a professional baseball. Like all those little dreams that you've been holding on to, saying to yourself, well, maybe one day, all that stuff starts to go out the window, and we all have it in common. It's across the board. We all have that in common.
Yeah, regardless of age, regardless of gender, I think that is exactly the point. And a lot of that comes down to how does our culture define beauty, and how are we, like, what are we willing to write as our own narrative? So embracing that, babe. And also I figured, you know, my real name's a really old lady name. The average person in America who has it is like 68 years old. So I needed something a little bit more with more pizzazz. So Babe West, and there also, it is.
When I'm at a bar and I don't know somebody's name, especially bartenders, especially female bartenders, male too. Hey babe, hey babe, I need a drink.
Exactly.
So when people yell, yo babe, yes, that's my name.
Oh, for sure. People ask me that all the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm your babe. I'm everybody's babe. So if you don't have a babe, now you got a babe.
Oh,
it's almost like a rap name. If you were a rapper and your name was Babe West, that would make perfect sense. Like everybody would totally get that.
But yeah, no, that would be awesome.
No, you're welcome.
Babe Ruth and Babe, wasn't that Babe's name in Charlotte's Web?
Oh, I think that's a different one, but yeah, no, it is.
I'm just saying, babe, like famous babes, like, so you kind of got the corner on this.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, she's like the only fully nude one though. Thankfully.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Well, I always felt like as an older lady, I was going to end up like sitting somewhere in like Las Vegas, singing in a bar, or like, you know, showing those titties. So, you know, it'll be cute. I'll be a little old lady, and everybody will be calling me babe, and I'll still be taking off my clothes, and I'll be redefining Foxy.
I always say I can't wait to be, well, old, so I don't have to bleach my hair anymore, because it'll just be gray. That'll be awesome. But also, whoever I'm with, hopefully my babe. But I think it's gonna be so cool to still to feel attractive or feel sexual or sexy whenever things are wrinkly or sagging or whatever happens, I mean, hopefully I'm going to keep it together, but we're all going to get older. And like, I would hope that I still feel sexy at that point. And whoever I'm with thinks I'm sexy.
Oh, they better.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And we can watch porn together. We can watch the youngins on porn together. But do you have a lot of couples or individual singles that like you most, or your customers or clients?
Yes, I do have a few couples. I actually get a lot of requests in from couples the most. But so otherwise, a lot of my like subscribers and people that have been following forever, most of those I'd have to say are men. And what I've been trying to do is really branch more into, because I'm queer, however heteronormative I may present, I'm pretty damn queer, and I'm trying to actually make that more known in the content I create as well, because I feel like there's a need for it, and it would be nice, as much as I love my male followers, like y'all are my bread and butter. On top of that, you make me feel great about myself and have been encouraging me the whole way. I would really like to reach out to and make more safe content and just queer, crazy, yummy, messy stuff.
Okay, now for the folks who may not know, give us a definition of. We hear the terms, we know the alphabet, but you start figuring as a cis hetero guy, me. You start thinking that you're running out of letters eventually, and then here comes this other one, and it's like, okay, well, there's gay, straight, and bi, and now here's queer. Like, what's the cue? Where does that fit in?
Yeah, so for me,
knowing that this is for you specifically,
bi was the dirty word.
Say it again.
Like, for me, I'm of a generation where bi was the dirty word. I'm a millennial, and I know that I met older gay and lesbians that were really, for them, they had to fight so hard to be there, let alone be seen. And really the argument wasn't to be seen, it was to survive. And here we were, where we wanted to be seen. And not just be seen, but to be heard, and otherwise not defined. And it's one of those things, now that I have a whole nother generation coming in behind me, that my own definitions of what I am has constantly been called into question. And I try to remind people that sexuality is more like it's not static, right? You're not born one way or the other. Every experience changes you a little bit. And as you process and grow, hopefully you're changing, right? And how you define yourself can change. And so as a teenager, I was like, oh, I'm gay. And then I was like, you know what? No, actually, I'm bi. And I hit a lot of resistance in college trying to date women. They're like, oh, well, there's no such thing as bi. And if I could go back, I'd actually say that I'm pansexual, but pansexual is not my word. It's not something I came into like my life with, having that label. So for me, queer is, I like everything. I'm a little bit of an attention whore, and I'll take it whichever way I can get it, is what I tell people. And I don't have, I like all sorts of people on that, on that gender spectrum, and even in the non-binary, and and it's just like, as I move through life and I get to be exposed to more people, like just in their own self, and inhabiting their bodies and their sexuality and creating content that's just mind-blowing, I can't help but to be in love and attracted to that self-love and that expression. And so for me, when I use the term queer, what I mean is, I don't care what you got between your legs, and it could be anywhere in between that. I'm also polyamorous, so I don't live by the everyday constructs of relationship and hierarchies. I don't believe in them, and I don't. And for me,
or ownership, it's
yeah,
enjoying other people as opposed to owning them.
And in the moment. So when I was in high school, the best I could get was hedonistic, and then it turned into ethical hedonism. And
ethical hedonism. What the hell is that?
Yeah. So when people imagine hedonism, they probably still think of Hemingway and being in the moment, carpe diem. And the thing is, I'm all about consent. People are like, well, how is that not cheating if you don't communicate with your partner? And I'm like, well, I do communicate with my partner. It's not a, hey, I'm going to do this thing right now. Are you okay? I'm not texting before I do something. We're all adults.
But they also know what you're into, and they've
exactly
that, right? So you've communicated beforehand. This might happen.
It's not a oh, because I slept with somebody, now you get to sleep with somebody. That's not how we work. And although I have somebody that I consider, most people would be like, oh, well, that's my primary partner, I can't remember, the paramour, I think is what they say these days. I don't get down with that, not because I can't, but because we're adults here, and I don't value one person above the other. And my partners, when I have them, they meet different needs, but ultimately my happiness is on my shoulders. That's not anybody's need. Just like my orgasms, that's my responsibility. We come into bed, the point of sex is not for me, is not to have that right? Like, it's nice when I get it, but if I don't get it, that's not your fault, nor is it my fault. If I still am needing something at the end of our time, then for my happiness and as a responsible adult, I'll bang it out, right? Like, I don't put those obligations and expectations on others. So it's really alleviating of hangups and burdens I see other people go through in relationships.
Yeah. I heard a quote, or my friend did a video of a TikTok voiceover. I don't know where it came from. She said, "You're too pretty to be single." She goes, "No, I'm too pretty to be stressed." And I don't need your stress, whatever comes with that. Like, that's maybe why some people are either single or have redefined relationships, I think, is because the traditional way, without really mature, good communication, it's almost impossible to have a stress-free relationship, or even like a low stress relationship, because women and men, or women and women, two human beings are different. So we're gonna run into roadblocks and frustrations, and it sounds like you found a way to not have.
People get afraid of conflict, and I welcome it. And that's a big change from whom I used to be. I was a conflict avoider. I was a ghoster. I was the person that would have bills. I didn't want to pay them because I didn't necessarily have all the money or know how I was going to get myself out of that hole. And I wouldn't open the bill, but those things don't go away. And these days I really do welcome them. Conflict is an opportunity to grow, to challenge yourself, and to appreciate differences. And I feel like that's lost in our culture right now, that differences are even necessary. But I'm glad.
Well, conflict avoidance across the board is going to be one of the things that's going to, I feel like conflict avoidance across the board definitely helps create more conflict than it solves.
Right. Well, it festers. It gets worse if you don't deal with it.
I mean, and people will seek to build a life that is conflict free, and that's not possible. That's it. Like there is no scenario where you're not going to conflict with somebody, even if it's not malicious.
Then your goal is unattainable, and then you're even more frustrated and dealing with more conflict because you're never going to be happy because you can't reach what you're looking for.
Which is why the smart move is to not learn to avoid conflict, but teach kids how to properly assess and deal with conflict. Right. You have to, if you send them out the house thinking everything is kumbaya, this world is going to eat them alive, and there's no way around it. It's inevitable. They're going to get eaten alive. You teach them how to politely decline, gracefully bow out, righteously stand up, forcefully enforce borders, boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. You teach them that thing. Now you have a child that's, without being a bully, you teach them competition without malice. You teach them how to lose gracefully. Now you have a well-adjusted person who can go out and deal with the world as is, as opposed to dealing with the world how we like it to be, which is, I think, the bane of my existence, is these participation trophies from people who want the world to exist a certain way. And you turn up this non-existent self-esteem on a bunch of people who don't know how to lose and don't know how to be told no and don't know how to be told that you don't deserve it because you want it. You deserve it because you earned it. Two totally separate things.
I was going to say also with the evolution, hopefully we've obviously life is a roller coaster and culture changes every few years. What's acceptable. I said something earlier. I said politically correct. And I go, you know what? Morally correct is what I'm going for. Like politically correct it's up to the politics at the time, but like things should change generally towards morally correct, I hope. The reason I say all that is I'm at my sister and their wife's house right now in Tallahassee. And they are, how do I even explain? My sister's a they. I'm allowed to say sister, but not she. So that's adjustment. Their wife is a she. She's Haitian, and they want to have a child. And so, I'm in my head, and my mom is like, well, what kind of environment? This is confusing. And I said, no, it won't be confusing to the kid. It'll just be. We're the ones that are struggling with change and redefining genders, identity, sexuality, because we're used to certain things and change is hard. But these children of the next generation, I can't wait till it's going to be like obvious that you get to define your type of relationship, your type of sexuality, even your gender in a way that doesn't hurt, affect, or harm, frustrate other people. It's kind of not their business. So anyway, that's the reason I say that, because I like that things are evolving, even if it's confusing and frustrating for some of us.
I think people are resistant to sitting in uncomfortable space. We don't necessarily know what to do with it. And a lot of it is because we've kind of been geared to ignore our own emotions. And your emotions are very valid, and they're there to protect you, to motivate you, to cause change. Like I tell people all the time when they're like, "Oh, I'm not a jealous person." I'm like, "Bitch, you better believe you are. You're just lying to yourself." I'm okay with getting jealous because I acknowledge that as that person has something I want, and rather than letting jealousy control me, okay, what's the root issue there? What's your issue? And it's like, okay, well, they got this. Okay, well, how do you get that? If you want that, how do you get that? Anger is there to move you out of situations. If you keep finding yourself angry, it's because you're not changing your situation. And we avoid being honest with ourselves, keeping ourselves constantly busy, constantly plugged into other things, trying to keep up with all this stuff, rather than actually acknowledging what we need. And because we're not doing that work, we don't move through life and other confrontations and conflicts and change like we should. And I mean, it's natural. You call me babe, and so on. We call a car, right? But a car is like thousands of mechanisms working together to be a car. As soon as one of those things break, that's the only time you care about what it actually is. And you have to go, oh, this is not a car. This is my starter or whatever, And part of that, I think, is just the way our evolution, our brains work. We're constantly creating shortcuts. But there is a simplicity, I think, to doing the work and understanding why you feel the way you feel.
I find a common thread when we interview several, not all, but several of the people we've interviewed in the adult industry have thought this through, thought the mentality and emotional connections, and it just feels like I'm sitting here learning. I'm grateful, super grateful. But is it because you're dealing with human sexuality and so many people's human sexuality, maybe your responsibility? Because I find that several of our guests have been really, really well spoken about these type of subjects.
Well, It's funny because like I often feel like the one person no one really trusts is a prostitute, is a sex worker, is a, you know, for better or worse, a whore, right? And when people look at you that way for so long, you can get angry about it. You can be defensive about it. Or you can realize the best way to win people over is to show them that, one, you're not any different. And then the nature of the work, right? The people that I've served over the last decade. I always tell people I'm trauma informed, but I am not a therapist, nor should you use our time together as a replacement for therapy.
Right.
And I think that a lot of what I've done throughout my life in this wide breadth of sex work is be a companion, to be someone who sees people as they are in the moment. And for whatever reason brought you here to me today, we're going to sit here with you and who you are. And a lot of it is therapy. A lot of it is healing traumas. And the truth is, you know, we need the human touch. We need time and attention. We need somebody to listen. And, you know, you always hear like, these anecdotal, like, you know, a stripper's only listening to you as long as you're throwing money or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but if it wasn't really a need that needed to be filled, strip clubs wouldn't exist and people wouldn't throw their money to get a couple of minutes with this girl. It's a need. We can say anything.
A therapist only listens as long as you're paying the bill too, though.
And all time being equal. And I think that's one of the things that sex workers really understand is richest, poorest person on earth, we're equal in time. We don't know how much is in the bank, but what we do know is, one, it'll never be enough. And two, when it's spent, you can't get it back. So I feel like some of us work these industries that we understand all time is equal and we respect that, if nothing else, right?
Oh, and imagine spending your life feeling unheard, unloved, unattractive. Geez, everyone should feel some of the great moments that those of us that fit certain norms get all the time.
I completely disagree.
I think everyone should feel those things, especially if you're a horrible person, then
exactly, which is why
I was in my head. I was like, I mean, maybe some people don't deserve that.
No, what I'm saying is people that have done no wrong should not be punished because they don't fit a norm. That's my point.
Yeah, no, the issue, the conflict comes when you remember that no one is the villain in their own story. All of us have, and when we're telling our story, none of us tell it as the bad guy. Adolf Hitler, who's like one of history's most horrible people, saw himself as the good guy. You have to always remember that the Nazi Party saw themselves as the heroes in that. All those atrocities. Some of them
needed a hug before they got to that point, is my point.
Oh no, absolutely.
Before they became so bad, I don't know if it was
but did they deserve the hug at the time? Because there are people who do horrible things and then turn around and say, "Well, I deserve to be heard." No, dude, you're horrible. You're not informed on anything that's happening here. You just really want to speak. Now, I'm not mad that you want your voice, but dude, you don't deserve it. How did you earn that? Where did it come from? Did you do the work? Did you do the work to be any kind of a good person? Anything whatsoever? Are you really trying to do the right thing? Which again becomes subjective because everybody, for the most part,
the right thing
believes that they're doing the right thing.
Somehow justifiable. Babe, I feel like you have something to say.
And dig it deeper when you're talking about harm. A lot of people have a hard time, and I think we hear it a lot these days, especially with performative actions and call out culture. They have a hard time accepting that they cause unintentional harm. And unintentional harm is still harm, whether it was meant or not, whether we had all the tools there.
Yeah.
And so but yeah, no, I think that that's a really good point. And really it comes down to, where are you on your impact in the world? Are you moving through the world trying to cause as little harm as possible and create good? And furthermore, when you're creating that good, are you trying to create that change in life so that you feel better about yourself? Or is it not about you? It's more about legacy and what you leave behind. And I have two boys, and it's really hard sometimes being the mother of cis males, and realizing that they're coming into a world where their privilege will forever be the first thing people recognize and see. And I just try to teach them like this: you're coming through a lot of doors in your life, and whether you see it or not, someone opened that door for you. They held it open for you. So when you walk through a door, pause, look behind you, and make sure that that door that you just walked through isn't being shut in another person's face. And there are always going to be those uncomfortable times. And even in like my career as in porn, I've caused unintentional harm to people that I adore, to people in communities that I had no way of knowing, but it happens. So what do we do with that? And I think one of the best things is not to necessarily immediately react or try to shift blame or say, I didn't know, I didn't have, I did my best.
Yeah.
And a good example is like in community organizing. We have a big deaf community here in Portland, and when organizing events and being as an artist at these venues where there wouldn't be interpreters and stuff, that's an accessibility issue. And
deaf, a big deaf community.
Deaf community.
Yeah, deaf.
Yeah, we both misunderstood that. I was like,
I thought she said deaf. We have a big deaf community.
I thought maybe retirement and people happen to be dying.
No, my next question was, how are they getting involved? How does that happen? Where are these rallies happening? Yeah, like a big deaf community. Is there a neighborhood?
Numbers if they're all dying.
Yeah, like, are they online? Is it a specific like crew that's hanging out? Like a big deaf community? Like, holy crap, dead people just heading to Portland? Like,
it could have been death metal.
That's
totally.
why
we have a total black metal community too. But
that's why I needed clarity. That was
as a performer. And a lot of my art is very ableist. And as a fat-bodied person, things like pole, floor dancing, chair dancing, and all that, dance is very ableist. And I had to learn how to inhabit my own body and create space and tools for myself when instructors couldn't teach me. And my body, I'm bow-legged, so you can't really tell, but I can't get into like fifth position in ballet. So like all these things growing up my whole life thinking there was something wrong with me, but it's just my ability. But all this to say, like, as a performer, I hadn't realized that part of what I was doing was still limiting other people as well. And just trying to be more aware. And initially our response, me and an event organizer, was like, well, what are we supposed to do? Hire interpreters? We're barely making money in these shows. And it's amazing what tools you can get if you just look. And that wasn't the right response initially for us. And we had to take inventory and actually start getting feedback and start inviting more people to the table that weren't from the same background as us, and going back to those uncomfortable conversations. And I think that's why sex workers in particular really are better at this, because we have a shared culture. We were all forced underground. We've all been pushed out of the main boxes people put people in, and we aren't the standards.
So you spend time considering those things.
Yeah, and it just makes you more aware. But at the same time, like, I think there's tons of room for growth.
I got another question. I just thought about this. You said fat bodied person. What the terminology that you use? So there's BBW, or there's, like, I don't know all the terminology. And as a thin person, I never want to use words that could be offensive to somebody else's reality, whether they like being big or bigger than me, or if would like to lose weight. Like Adele just lost a bunch of weight, and a bunch of people are mad at her because she represented a community. She wanted to be, okay, whatever people want. I'm curious on your take on that.
Yeah, I didn't live my whole life inhabiting a fat body. I don't use like thin, skinny, and all that, because I find skinny just as insulting to privileged bodies as some people may find fat. Because if you're a size 2, you can still feel fat. If you're size 22, you can still feel fat. If you're male, you feel fat. If you're trans, you feel fat. We all feel fat, but why? And it's because we're all under the same system of oppression and standard and hierarchy, right? Like, these things don't change. It's why if you were to invite people to come to a fat body only event, you would get a wide range of people. I think a common denominator is that they feel more, they're inhabiting their bodies more, and they're more accepting of their bodies. And for me, fat babe, fat bitch, like, I've been okay being called fat for a few years because it is who I am. And regardless of how fit I may be or what my body may look like, I have stretch marks. It's not a privileged body anymore. It will forever be held to standards of beauty that I cannot change. Mm-hmm. And I do not see it as damage. I see it as a story. My body is a vessel that has carried me through life. And it tells my story and mm-hmm. where I've been.
2 kids.
And with that, like, in the industry, I've been told you're not a BBW. And when I started, I've lost over 100 pounds, and I had people that liked my body, and even I liked my fatter body better because I had this beautiful round belly that was soft and plush. And now, I can joke about it. Sometimes it looks like a raisin sometimes. And, skin takes time to catch up and heal. And I describe myself as fat bodied, even though right now I've been losing size. I've been working on weightlifting. The more active I am, my body is going to continue to change. And, I'm getting away from the term BBW because there's so much more work to do, and BBW is a fetish. And when people are fetishizing about your body, they're obsessing about it, and they're seeking to control and define it. And so I've been focusing less on that as a title and an industry. I still have to use it to be visible in the industry, but it's one of those things that I really do look forward to the growth and change there. But also, I think it is great to hear people call themselves fat, because that's not a bad word. It just means you got adipose tissue. And that happens to hang on your body in various ways. You squishy, whatever, gordita, right? Like, I'm hella gordita. And it's.
We were out dancing the other night, and it was, there's a lot of songs about ass. So there was, one of those was on, and I was dancing, happened to be sort of in between several of my friends, and they started smacking my butt. And I was like, I'm not the one to highlight on this song. So, like, that way. But it was funny because I was like, I don't feel bad that I don't have a big butt, but I'm also realistic that that's not my highlight. I have other highlights. So I was just like, I'm not going to be the one twerking to this song particular. I'll twerk because it's fun. I'll bend over, touch my toes if the moment strikes, but not because us. But it's just interesting what people are drawn to about bodies. Because sexuality is so mental, and for a lot of us visual too. But what are we looking at? There's freaking variety out the wazoo.
But where do you see that?
I realize
that you see variety.
I just see, especially different color cultures. White and black folks look at different type bodies, age groups. My mom still can't wrap her head around big bottoms because she's still in the "does this make my ass look fat" mentality. She's still thinking of, and it's just an older mentality. She's like almost 70, so like big booties was like what you avoided in her whole
life. When I was in high school, there was nothing. Like, Paris blues were not made for curvy girls. And thank whomever for Beyonce, like, and even then, like, I remember hearing that back when she was with Destiny's Child, the first freaking music awards show, designers would not make anything for her body. So her mama made them outfits. And so like those kinds of things, like, I don't know. It is work to be done. And I have the capacity for it. So it's my work to be done. And sometimes, as much as fat people would love to say that, oh, it's these privileged bodies, it's the male narrative, it's the this, it's the that. I think a lot of times the things that hold us back are our own selves, because sometimes the most fat phobic people I've had to deal with are other fat bodies and other fat people's opinions. And again, it goes back to, are you doing that work? Do you accept yourself? Do you love yourself?
I think one of the most attractive things is somebody that does love themselves. And a lot of guys, as you know, because clickbait, people are going to click what they're actually interested in. Maybe in public, who they date or who they'll point at will try to fit some expectation or cultural norms. But what people do on their own time and what they click and who they support, especially through their phone or computer, is what actually turns them on. And I think confidence is probably number one. Somebody that loves coming for you, like, wow, that's exciting.
I'd get off stage at shows and, you know, be hanging, mingling, getting a drink afterwards. And I'd hear it a lot from men, like, I didn't realize I was into big girls. And I'm like, well, thank you. I don't blame you. You never get to see it. It's not what's right up in your face when you open up the hubs. Get on Twitter and scroll unless you're already subscribing to that. And then, you know, I'd hear it from ladies too. Oh my God, I never thought I could do something like that. And then seeing you do that, maybe I can. And that visibility is important, because unless you see someone like you that you can identify as, or see yourself in their shoes, you're not necessarily going to have the wherewithal to tell yourself that that is possible. Mm-hmm. And there's so much more work to be done there. And I'm fortunate because I grew up in a Black community. I was North Carolina, one of the few white girls in Hope County, going to school. And I was never made to feel different in my home church. And even though I'm not religious anymore, and I've had to separate myself from all that culture, I did benefit from it 100%. And so I grew up knowing that my body was as intended, by design. And I didn't have to fight for that, I feel, as hard as other people do.
I have a question.
Wait. Hold on. I got one. Because I've been wanting to get to this for like
welcome to the conversation, Mac.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get to this for like a couple of turns now. Where do we draw the line? And this is specifically for you, babe. I want to know where you think we draw the line between sensitivity and oversensitivity, and who gets to decide. I feel a lot of conflicts that happen nowadays come from people saying, you hurt me, you've damaged me, you've done damage. And people on the other side of that argument going, you need to be tougher. You need to be tougher. You're too sensitive. This was not meant to hurt you. Are you jumping in front of a bullet that wasn't even meant for you? Are you taking offense to something that wasn't said in that way because you can, or because you're actually offended? Are you being too now? And I'll speak for myself. There have been times when I've had to recognize that I'm too sensitive about a very specific topic. And this is me. This is not them. This is me. They don't need to change. I do. This is on me. This is my thing, not them. Somebody says something about, everyone knows how important my father was to me. Somebody says something about a dad. I react badly, but the world doesn't need to shut up about fathers because I have a problem with it, or because I'm in my feelings and I haven't dealt with that yet. I think as this world has begun to evolve, into this place where we're so intent on making space for other people and making room for other people to feel comfortable. We've begun to, I think we're either we're already over it or we're starting to go past the point where we're not allowing people the opportunity to grow because we want everyone to be comfortable. So now everyone gets to be comfortable with everything that bothers them and anything that triggers them or anything that sets them off or anything that rubs them the wrong way. It's now the world's responsibility to take care of that thing as opposed to them taking care of that thing that's really set them off, getting underneath the issue that's really getting to them. You said it a couple of times, a couple of different ways, but the fact that you were intent on doing the work and you were, analyzing yourself and can I be called fat? Is that okay? Well, yeah, I'm cool with being called that. Fat body. Okay, yeah, you can call me that. That's cool. Because I've actually come to realize that I enjoy that. So that's fine. I'm not going to get offended by that. But you could if you wanted to. And some people do because they can. So I'm wondering where you fall in that, where you stand in that part of a discussion.
Yeah, I am pretty vocal that I am not a big believer in call out culture. It failed us. And this is I think as far as to directly answer your question, who gets to say, I think the most marginalized person in the room gets to determine what they are and are not comfortable with. And if harm was actually caused. Now that said, there's different approaches. And if I were to make a tweet or create content that I was not aware caused harm, and I've made tweets in support of people that are actually toxic to like my trans community friends and friends of mine, it took them a while, but they've come back to me and they're like, look, when you first started, you were very vocal about X, Y, and Z. And this particular group of people are actually very harmful and have caused a lot of harm. Something I would have never have known. And it's not my responsibility to keep up with everybody's like drama. Mm-hmm. However, I feel like I was never publicly called out and canceled. They were my friends. Now, here's the thing. If you're my friend and I know a friend, I'm going to hold you to that standard. And if I see something that may be problematic, I'm going to address it with you, but that doesn't mean you're canceled. How are you to grow if everyone that's supposed to support you and encourage you to change abandons you? Just kind of says, oh, you screwed up, F you, and now you're here, figure it out. You don't have anybody actually coming back and holding you accountable. Accountability isn't bad. Why do we have words like accountability buddies? Like it's an effort. And if your intent is just to come knock my wind out and put me down on that level, then no, I'm sorry. You can say whatever you want. I'm not going to entertain it. I'm not.
When do you tell someone to get over it? Is that ever appropriate?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. So again, like, what's their intent? If they're publicly shaming you, they're going around to all these groups that you commingle in, like a performer has an issue with another performer because they did something, maybe they used I know Ahiago face is a big one in the community right now. And it's something that like, I can't really weigh in on because I'm not the person it's damage is being done to. But I do see that people are just quick to say, oh, you do this little eye roll thing that looks cute on television. I don't think that's actually causing harm to people because one, nobody's asking you to watch their content. Two, I'm not educated enough and every interaction I see is not a historical, this is how it came into the media, this is how it's been used. It's always conversations around, it's used to oppress women. And you know what? They used to say the same thing about pornography and nude pictures and photography. It's used to oppress women. You're just a tool in the man's blah, 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 blah. And I don't think that conversation drives things forward when we still have issues in the community of are people actually getting, equal pay for equal work? Are they being treated right? Does sexual assault happen on set? Like there's so many other things. These little issues, dude, you're you're picking thorns off your roses.
And bullying the bully doesn't, generally pointing fingers, you know, the saying, like one finger out, three fingers back at you. If you're bullying the bully, yes, they bullied first, but now you just joined as a bully. Like you really like, if the intent, like you said, is bringing someone down, then you're already off topic. You're already off the goal. If the goal is to make the world a better place, the industry a better place, people feel better because they felt put down or bullied, you're already off topic. You're already veered off the path. You're not going that direction anymore. So
we all carry trauma. None of us get through life without it. And it's how you choose to respond to the world. And when people are like, oh, well, you know, you need to put content warnings or trigger warnings, I'm like, on my private Instagram that you have to be accepted into, or my Twitter, no, I don't think I need to put a little trigger warning. But if I had an open account where anybody of any age could be on, for me, I'm like, okay, that makes sense-ish. I think that this next generation is going to continuously like educate me, because I used to feel like all art should be free of that kind of censorship, and it is censorship. It really is. We won't say it. We're like, oh, but we're just trying to not marginalize other people. I'm like, no, it's still censorship, but at the same time, there are definitely things that are not okay to do in art. They aren't, and I wouldn't be, I'm so happy that I don't have to hear like Lewis C. Clark and all these other people like saying all these things that they used to say. And I don't have to like go to comedy houses anymore and feel hated on by male comedians all the time. And like, I shouldn't even be in this boys only club. And I know that I'm just speaking from my experience, but I do think that ultimately if people are harassing you and there's no intent to build community, then you get all privileged to say, fuck you, fuck off, leave me the fuck alone.
It's kind of, I don't know, because
we also have to wrap up, just FYI. We're like,
yeah, I'm watching the clock. You're also in a space where you've chosen to go to that comedy show, you've chosen to patronize that comedian, and he's chosen to speak to the audience who laughs at his jokes, who may be fat bodied, able bodied, they may be any kind of body, but if they're laughing, and that's his room, his crowd. So again, we circle back to, when do you tell somebody to get over it?
Well, and I said,
or when do people go create their own spaces?
Say it again.
Creating your own space. You said that, and that is a great point. Like if I came to somebody that I know that they're going to tell like fat jokes, or, you know, I know that they're going to be like hating on this or that, I should, one, know what I'm getting myself into before I proceed. And then two, if I don't like that, I can always create a space. You can't necessarily go change. Some of the best change that's going to happen is creating alternative perspectives and alternative environments, different options.
Somebody said, if you don't like it, move. You are not a tree. You can go create something that works better for you somewhere else.
And I'm way too insensitive. I tell people to get over it all the time. I'm way too insensitive. Yeah, what you said really hurt my feelings.
Babe, I want you to tell everybody where to find you and how to subscribe, how to figure out if they like what you do. If they
super simple. You can find all my information at thebabewest.com. That's thebabewest.com. I'm on IG, Twitter, ManyVids, and many other places.
Many private spots, so make sure you're at work without the boss over your shoulder, unless he's into
where you can see her private spots.
Right.
Oh, well, if you want to do that, you can always email me at bookbabewest@gmail.com.
And then that just happened. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us for this enlightening conversation. We'll circle back around and have some more. You're welcome to come back whenever you want to chop it up, or bring some buddies and we can chop it up. We didn't even get into your personal life. We'll do that later. In the meantime, in between time, I'm your man, Mr. Mac.
And I'm Crystal Levin.
This has been the M+M+M show, aka the show. May you live as long as you want and never want as long as you live. Do us all a favor. Go get laid. Peace.
Pew, pew.